And we can begin in 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Pierce County Council in Tuesday study session. The date is July 22nd, 2025, and the time is 12:01. All members are present except for Councilmember Denson, who is excused. I am going to ask, we have a couple kind of meaty topics and discussion items. I want to honor the time of our judicial team that's here today and ask my colleagues if there are any objections. I'd like to have them just jump to the front of the line so they can go back to doing their work on behalf of the people. Okay, so we're gonna amend our agenda and do other business, just A first, and then we will go back to our regularly scheduled program. So, Ms. Long, are you introducing this or is Ms. Kelly introducing
Andrea.
this? Ms. Kelly's introducing this. Okay. Ms. Kelly.
Thank you, Chair Hitchin. Andrea Kelly, Council staff. Today we have at District Court's request, the presiding judge, Honorable Claire Sussman, is presenting on the inaugural State of the Court for District Court. Their report was released in April of this year and is publicly available online. Since we're going a bit out of order, the report itself is on page 31 of your electronic packet, or is separate. You have a copy. And the presentation itself is on page 17 of your electronic packet.
Thank you very much. Your Honor.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for giving us a chance to present the state of the court for Pierce County District Court. My name is Claire Sussman. I currently serve as the presiding judge for Pierce County District Court. And I'm glad you have a copy of our State of the Court brochure. Today, I'd like to talk to you about what we do, our current status, and where we're headed. Next slide, please. I wanted to feature for you the 3 branches of government. I think that's always a good foundation to start from. So we can see with the county council, you folks here, the legislative branch, and then we have the executive branch and the judicial branch. This slide shows the division of power as well as our different functions as elected officials. Of course, as the legislative branch, you folks you have the power to make and change laws. The executive has the power to put laws into action, and as the court, we have the power to interpret and to apply the laws. We are a bench of 8 elected judges and 1 appointed commissioner. Next slide, please. And district court and courts of limited jurisdiction are often referred to as the people's court. But when I think about district court, I think it's more than that. District court is a true reflection of the community that we serve in a number of ways. First, it is where the vast majority of people will experience the justice system, other than family law cases, which will be heard in Superior Court. District Court is where the average resident is going to come into court, have a traffic infraction that they're going to want to talk to about a judge, seek a protection order, handle a small claim, perhaps an issue with a neighbor, a merchant, something of that nature. In addition, it's a reflection of the court because district court reflects the day-to-day issues that we see. When you drive home from work and you see people tearing through traffic, going at excessive speeds, the types of things that you see, the types of things that when you have family members out on the road and you're hoping they're going to be okay and come home safely, speeding traffics, reckless driving, DUI, those are the cases we see. As to, and even considering theft, maybe your last time you went to the grocery store, a lot of common items are now behind a glass lock case. Things are changing here. These are the types of issues we deal with, okay? And lastly, justice-involved persons are part of this community. It's a little, and the reason that's significant is because at the level of charges that we handle for criminal, these are folks that are also going to remain in our community. So we spend a lot of time balancing punishment and accountability with rehabilitation as well. so that the community also benefits. Next slide, please. As far as jurisdiction or authority over cases, we handle criminal cases that occur in unincorporated Pierce County. That's domestic violence, driving under the influence, driving crimes, assaults. And domestic violence cases are quite significant at the gross misdemeanor level. They involve assault, they can involve strangulation, and it only takes 1 to 3 minutes of a case of choking to become a fatality. They're critical cases. They require a great deal of expertise and attention, and the misdemeanor assaults, I should say domestic violence at a misdemeanor level is often considered as homicide prevention. And get involved early, address things while they're at a low level so that they don't escalate. Our criminal cases also different from our civil cases typically involve multiple hearings. That's because the different stages of a criminal case. You've got arraignment, you've got pretrial, readiness, jury trial, violation hearings. And so there's multiple hearings per case. There's also constitutional considerations, right to a speedy trial, right to a jury trial, and a right against unlawful search and seizure, Fourth Amendment. And the Constitution doesn't distinguish between gross misdemeanor, or felony. You've got the right to against an unreasonable search and seizure. You've got the right to a speedy trial. You've got the right to a jury trial if it's a criminal case. And so those constitutional issues are as complex at the misdemeanor level as they are at the felony level. So just understanding some of those things as well. Next slide, please. Our civil cases. For civil cases, we handle protection orders, civil litigation, up to $100,000, small claims, infractions, name changes, and other civil matters. And our civil cases, we have a very heavy civil caseload. We have one judge that handles our civil cases. I should say that heads our civil department, and that's Judge Carl Williams, who's present here today. Because of the heaviness of our civil caseload, however, 6 of our other 8 judges all handle civil. So our criminal judges don't just handle criminal. They handle their criminal cases. They all have civil dockets, protection orders, infractions, and other civil cases that have been filed. Next case, please. District court cases are critical to public safety. I had a deputy once tell me that more lives are lost due to car accidents than to violent crime. And it's something that was said to me, it's had to be over 10 years ago. And it stuck with me in preparation for today. I took a little closer look at it. So these are my statistics. I'll tell you where I got them from. The source for homicides is Tacoma News Tribune. They do a yearly report as far as homicides in Pierce County. So that's the far number. And the middle number for traffic fatalities, I went to the Washington State Traffic Safety Commission dashboard website. They track fatalities by county throughout the entire state of Washington. So I put those together for 22 to 24, and you can see traffic fatalities outweigh homicides. Well, what's the nature of the traffic fatality behavior? That's the pie chart. The pie chart comes from the Washington State Traffic Safety Commission dashboard. Impaired driving, 47%. That's DUIs, that's district court. Speed infractions, district court. Unrestrained persons, not using your seatbelt, or unrestrained child. Distracted driving, cell phone use while driving. All of that behavior. We see that daily, all of that behavior. And our infraction calendar, our criminal calendar for reckless driving, DUI. Next slide, please. This is our caseload history. So it's kind of interesting. We get asked this a fair amount as far as, well, what did your caseload, what happened during COVID and all the rest? So we can see in 2019, we had the 62,400 some, and it went down quite a bit due to COVID, and charging went down. And now you can see in 2024, we've surpassed our pre-pandemic numbers. and doing an estimation from taking the first 6 months of 2025. This track, we continue to escalate and have additional case filings. We looked at a case filing by type, and next slide, thank you. So this was a chart that was put together by our administrative staff to show a projection for year-end 2025 filings. The far right column is an extrapolation using the first 6 months of filings for January 2025 through June 30th of 2025. And so you can see from that second from the right is our year to date, and then they were just doubled. It's an accurate measure as it relates to civil, and I'm going to focus more on civil. In criminal, it's a little more challenging. Our criminal filings are difficult to predict for 2025 because there was a variance in charging in the first quarter of 2025. Prosecutor's office was working through a backlog of cases, and so we had a variance there. So time's going to tell for our criminal cases. But what I will say is that going back to my prior point, our criminal cases have multiple hearings. So our criminal courtrooms are full. And many of the filings that were done by the prosecutor's office, because there was a delay in filings, and that's not something negative on them. That's something that happened across the state. But a lot of those cases wound up in bench warrant status because people moved. There were 2023 incidents that got filed in 2025. So those cases really have yet to even get started. But let's talk civil. That's the main purpose of this slide. 82% increase in infraction filings, 41% increase in civil protection orders, and 79% increase overall in our civil filings. That's why our criminal judges also handle civil. We do that in order to bear the caseload. Next slide, please. Our district court stats that we wanted to share with you, we've talked about increase in filings. 88,000 customer service contacts is what's projected for 2025. I've worked for this court for a long time. That boggles my mind. I mean, that's a lot of people that have made contact with the court. In 2024, we had 78,000 customer service contacts. We made our projection the same way, 6 months. You know, when you look at 78,000, it's huge. People contact our court through phone, live chat, email, in person. And it's critical that we're available to people. Access to justice is a priority of our court. We've always been innovative. We were one of the first courts to do live chat. One of the first courts. And we have a lot of contacts. We have a lot of contacts because it's important to us that if people have business to do with the court, we find a way to have you access the court and to assist you. Our Court Resource Center, we're projected to have 8,500 visitors. That's up from 6,500 last year. 8,500 visitors. I know some of you folks have been to the Court Resource Center. It's amazing. You think of that small little building. And we know that 6,500 walked through those doors, projected to be 8,500. And that's all resources. It's that one-stop shop. And the word has gotten out. People, not just DAC attorneys, prosecutors refer, but people who've had success there refer their friends. You don't have to be justice involved to be there. Someone needs help, don't know where to go, walk through the doors. If they don't know the answer, they can direct you. It's something we're really proud about. Our probation caseloads are also up 38% since 2023. So just letting you know that as well. And next slide. I want to talk about some of our specialty courts. Veterans Treatment Court is a specialty court. Judge Dwayne Christopher, who's present and back there, he presides over our Veterans Treatment Court, which links justice-involved veterans to treatment. It's unique in that anyone that is involved as any participant of Veterans Treatment Court not only does evaluations for substance use, but they're required to also do a mental health evaluation. That's unique for that court. Even if the underlying crime didn't seem to show anything with respect to mental health need, it's always done in that court, because let's screen for that. If that's an issue, let's get you involved with the benefits that you earned through your service. So it's really important court, community court. Commissioner Pedro Chow, who's also present here today, presides over that court. And we've been able to develop something interesting where that community court is held at the Court Resource Center. So that's something new too. You walk into the Court Resource Center, go to your left, and that's where court takes place. Someone needs resources, well, they're right over there. It puts resources with people. Started that process with the City of University Place, and we're looking forward to expanding that with Pierce County Prosecutor's Office, hopefully in mid-August. And Domestic Violence Court. Domestic Violence Court, I placed up there as a specialty court, not as a therapeutic court, but as a specialty court, because they have specialized knowledge and training, prosecution, the defense. They're specially trained with domestic violence. Of course, Judge Padula is well-versed in those issues, and the probation officers assigned also specially trained for domestic violence issues. We're proud that we're able to offer domestic violence treatment in-house through our probation department that is affordable and that keeps people accountable. And we know the level of that treatment because it's our own folks who happen to be trained also in therapeutic methods. Next case, talking a little bit about probation. I want to also be mindful of your time. I know you have a busy agenda. But I'd let you know this, that our probation department is top-notch. Our probation department, as well as our probation manager, Dom Hardiman, who also is present, have earned recognition and awards for their excellence and innovativeness. Within probation, we have specialized probation divisions. So we have behavioral health unit, we have domestic violence, we have therapeutic court. There are little different approaches or different expertise. You know, how do we, and our probation officers, you know, when we think about it, post-disposition after a case, that probation officer is likely to spend more time with someone who's justice involved than their own attorney. It's important. They're knowledgeable, they're trained, and we do a great job there. Next slide. Now, I'm not going to go too far into this, and that's where your brochure will be helpful. I'm doing this more as a diagram, but this diagram is in your brochure, and it talks about our therapeutic programs and services. We deal a lot with issues with substance use, behavioral health, and whether someone goes into a quote therapeutic court or not, they still have issues that need to be addressed. The judge has still ordered treatment. So let's find a way to where people can be most successful. I placed that diagram with the circles are intersecting because they often relate one to another. I mean, we have the Court Resource Center there. It's intersecting with probation alternative programs, so work crew or day reporting, and they wind up kind of connecting together. But I placed the whole figure, if you will, in a circle for Pierce County. And the reason I did that is twofold. One, because again, recalling that the persons who are in these programs, these are folks that are residents from Pierce County. This part of our people are part of our community. And also that these programs benefit Pierce County as a whole and Pierce County programs. Our work crew program gets people ready and eligible to staff Pierce County Public Works. So there's a partnership there. Our therapeutic programs also get people ready for job fairs and hiring events like the Pierce County Career Fairs. And our Court Resource Center holds hiring events that benefits the entire county. And those are very popular. Next slide, please. So I kind of told you where we are, but wanted to also let you know where we're headed. Our priorities and strategic priorities are as follows: being responsive to the needs of the community. That's things like access to justice and therapeutic modalities. utilizing public resources efficiently, using technology to improve systems, utilizing data to make decisions, and being responsive to the needs of our staff as well, and being supportive to them as well. Next slide. The well-being of our community is paramount. Not only do we strive to meet the needs of the community when people engage with the court, but we reach out to the community to give back. We're extremely proud of our work and the value we provide. Some of our photos there show our involvement with Wreaths Across America, with Paint Tacoma Beautiful, with our food bank, employee recognition events. So we're glad to partner with you in service to Pierce County. I thank you for an opportunity to share a bit of what we do with you. And I'd invite any questions if there are.
Thank you very much for the overview and the work you and the entire department does and all the staff that help support our constituents and community members that need a little hand holding. So we'll go to Vice Chair Herrera.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. District Court always works really hard. You're showing some of the filings and we're seeing increases. Is that kind of, in your opinion, is it kind of getting back to normal versus, because we had COVID, things were catching up. And then also, 10 years ago, we had triple the filings.
Yeah.
District Court has changed quite a bit, but are you seeing any trends or anything like that?
I think the filings as it relates to civil are definitely, I don't see any reason those would be changing.
Well, I see
And
civil, but
infractions.
criminal,
And-
all of it.
And
Yeah.
yes, yes. But I think my analysis is a little different. So that's kind of why I would split that up. As to criminal, it's difficult to tell because, there's a lot of logistics that happen with criminal filings with district court cases. One of those being that while the prosecutor was working through their backlog, many of our cases are DUI blood cases. And so those cases are often at least a year backlog from the Washington State Toxicology Department in testing. So it's hard to get a full picture. Even when I, at one point, talked to the prosecutor's office, say, well, how many of those cases wound up actually being backlog cases? And we had a hard time, or I had one of my staff do that. And they had a hard time really identifying that because I think of the Washington State Tox, their own backlog, which hopefully will get better and not, having a year delay in testing blood cases. But as far as trends, I think that's a difficult one for me to predict. If I had it, I'd give that to you. But it ultimately is the discretion of the prosecutor's office. I think what I'm seeing as the arraignment judge is, because I handle the first appearances, certainly seeing a lot of DUIs coming through. And I'm also seeing a lot of the more lower level charges, like the thefts, like the criminal trespasses. So, and it's also influenced, I think, probably through law enforcement and what the priorities are there and stopping and citing and following through. So
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question.
That helps. And what I'm getting at a little bit also is like, we see your stats here. Does that include NCFs at all or no charges filed or?
No, it
It
shouldn't.
doesn't,
it
it's just
should not
a
include-
file, right?
Yeah, it shouldn't include a no charges filed.
So what percentage of total cases that come through your desk are NCF'd?
Oh, I don't have that stat for you, but we can look into that stat and provide that to you. And
Okay.
then you have to get into, well, is it NCF is no charges filed? Is it no charges filed pending or is it no charges filed
Sure.
final? We see a lot of no charges filed pending. If we talk about no charges filed
Yeah.
due to the blood, DUI blood. So I can look at my calendar and say, okay, this is a DUI blood arraignment and it's an NCF pending. I pretty much figure, I don't even
Well,
see
we
the
can
blood
get
as
more
like,
detailed. NCF final,
what's that?
NCF final.
How many are NCF final?
Yeah, percentage. That'd be good. That's good. So,
Okay, we can see what that might look like and what that might mean, what numbers we actually have. And the prosecutor's office
Hmm.
probably be a better thought
Yeah,
for that.
probably, yeah.
But we'll see what we can do on that.
One last, if I may, and this is totally different. So, district court, we have a lot of therapy courts now, where before, when it comes to like drugs, it was felonious. So they kind of handled the drug court type of thing. So things have changed to where you're feeling that burden a little bit more. How is that going versus, is that, how are therapeutic courts going, I guess?
So we continue to try to move forward with our therapeutic courts. As far as the drug court aspect, there was a time when we had a misdemeanor drug court, frankly, and it was felonies got dropped down
Mhm.
to a misdemeanor level. That was a pretty successful court.
Yes.
I presided over that court. When things got reduced down to a misdemeanor, I think we see some of those come through, but a lot of those are going through a pre-criminal charging diversion. That's being done through the prosecutor's office. So we don't see those cases. And that would be a good question for the prosecutor's office. But I'll tell you, we saw a lot of good results when we had cases that we had the leverage from a court, a judge sitting presiding, prosecutor and a public defender all assisting, because the main drugs were opiates and methamphetamine. And especially with opiates, it's extremely difficult to work through that addiction. And it takes a lot. And I think it takes a lot of people, and it's a worthwhile investment.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where we are.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you,
Yes.
Chair.
Thank you for the questions and the follow-up. I know Ms. Kelly also heard the question, might have some ideas on who to call. We'll go to Councilmember Krueger.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank
You know, courts are always such a mystery because there's so much involved in it. And just to kind of piggyback on Councilmember Herrera, because when I always hear this term justice involved, and I never grew up with that.
Right.
And I have to
Right.
ask, for the purpose of incarceration, is it more looked at as the opportunity to provide therapy or the opportunity for consequences of choices made?
Both. It's just it's a different term. It wasn't a term I grew up with either.
Yeah.
It wasn't a term that was used when I started to practice law. But it is a term, if someone has involvement with the criminal justice system, there's still that idea of accountability. There's that idea of rehabilitation and therapy. So it doesn't change those purposes. But it is a different term. And I think it's a term that's used hopefully to be, that wouldn't stigmatize the person when they have paid their debt to society, and phrase that, that is used. And I think that's the reason for that term change.
And can you define assault? Because it just seems like when you listen to the news or people are talking, it is like, you touch somebody, that's assault, but yet you beat them up and that's still assault. I guess you have
Right.
different degrees of it,
That's
but
right.
it just is always kind of an enigma to me.
Yeah, it's a good question. So an assault is an intentional touching that the person would find offensive. At a district court level, which is assault 4, that's the definition. So that can be a strike, it can be hitting someone, it can be hitting someone pretty significantly. When you get to a level of substantial bruising or a broken bone, you have an assault 2. What happened to assault 3? That's an assault against a police officer or some particular individuals.
Okay.
Okay, does
It-
that help?
Yes,
define
and
that?
I always just, I guess I wonder like, who takes the time to file things? Because I just remember it was in Olympia and I pointed at a book and the guys, don't touch me. And I'm like, what kind of bizarre response was that? But
Yeah,
I-
and that's
and
a
it-
pretty generalized definition on my part, but I think that's a fairly good one. You can get into a little more detail if you do something to create a reasonable apprehension of harm. You can get into some more details, but that I think is a good framework.
it just was very interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that must have been.
And a new
Unusual.
one for me. And then there was the graph that had where the charging went down, and that was from the virus era.
Yes.
And the comment I think I heard was, charging going down. Was it just because there weren't people out there to charge them, so they got away with things? Or because, they didn't want them in the jail?
Yes.
I
And yes, so yes, not as much law enforcement. Yes, people weren't out as much. And yes, jail wasn't taking bookings except at our level, except for DUI and DV. So things were definitely really down. And I think there was that idea, when you are in an emergency, just like your body does, right?
Mhm.
Your emergency, there's a threat, your body's going to focus on the most central things. And I think that's what happened. They focused on what are our most major gross misdemeanor issues. You're talking DUI and DV.
Okay, because the frustrations are, the public that is the recipient of bad behavior, and then these people just are let go or not charged.
Right.
And there's an expectation.
Yeah. And again, as the court, we're on the receiving end, so we don't charge. And if something's charged with our court, then we go. We didn't close our doors at all. Things that were filed, we addressed, and we made no decisions to reduce caseload. But we're on the receiving end of that. And I do understand why law enforcement and the prosecution would need to, work with what they had. And I think that was the result of that. But as I showed it through 2024, we're past that. So I think we're in a really different place right now. And it's important. I agree with you for the reasons you just said.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Thank you, Chair.
welcome.
Thank you for the questions. Are there any other questions? I have two, and they're from the actual report.
Okay.
One is around work crew versus day reporting. I see work crew is going up and day reporting is going down, and I'm just curious, is it because work crew is now back and we're providing as an option? I'm just curious for the change, because
Yeah, as far as the reasons for that,
that may be a dumb
we
question.
tried, yeah, Mr. Hardeman might be the better person, but I can tell you from the court perspective, we try to encourage the work crew and as the first thought, because that's something where someone is giving back directly to Pierce County, doing work crew and which is doing work around the county. And if someone is unable to do work crew for any reason, physical limitations, then day reporting is available. So work crew is the first tier, and that's probably why you're seeing that difference.
Okay, and then are these stats only for people who are on probation, not currently in our jail?
These stats are for whether someone is on formal probation or court supervision.
Okay,
And so but these are out of custody programs.
out of custody, okay. And then thank you, I appreciate that. And then my second question, which I wrote down, is around the on the same, the page next to it, which is Pathways to Progress. It talks about things that the needed services. Number one is housing. Number two is needs employment. I see those two as very closely intertwined. I'm curious if the county were to invest in one versus the other, if there's any thoughts from your team, where would be the best placement? Because if we have limited dollars and we could only invest in one program, again, I don't have any money for anybody. I'm just want to be clear. I just always ask this question. If in fact we had some dollars, is it more beneficial to invest in housing or employment opportunity? And this maybe go back to the team and kind of think about it, but it's just a curiosity for me since they're so close.
Yeah, it's a good question, and they're very interrelated. It's one, I don't want to put Mr. Hardeman too much on the spot, but as you hear that question, I would ask you whether you have a thought about that, because Mr. Hardeman works so directly with the individuals that do walk through that door at the Court Resource Center. And I don't know if that's a choice you can really make. Do you have a thought?
That's a.
Can you come to the mic in case anyone's listening online?
No.
Thank you.
That is a tough question.
It's a good one.
They are so closely intertwined. You had mentioned the increase in work crew. And I think part of that too is word has gotten out that work crews are pathways to employment. And so as that word has gotten out, folks realize I can actually get a good paying job. But back to the housing and that's tough. I'd like both.
I think we all would, and that's where we hit that crux of like, we can't do everything, but yeah, okay, they were so close, I was like, well, I just thought I'd ask, okay,
Question.
yeah. Are there any other questions? I know Fife has a really interesting program that they're working on, so. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions, so thank you all for being here and for the work you do regularly, and appreciate you spending some time in the report, and we'll let you go back to the rest of your very busy day, I'm sure.
All right. Thank you to all of you. We really appreciate being able to present today and your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna go back to item 2 with Ms. Long and take a look at today's council agenda.
All right, thank you and good afternoon. This is this afternoon's regular council meeting agenda. It is amended. We'll start with your consent agenda. You have a few items for introduction and scheduling. Today under ordinances, you have O 2025-522, and this is amending several chapters of the code, adopting a new chapter, cultural resource protection. This is for referral to CDEC, and you'll be setting the final on this one for September 2nd. The next is O 2025-524, and this is amending chapter 288 of the code, entitled Structures of Historical and Architectural Significance. This is for referral to CDC as well, and you'll be setting the final on this one for August 26th. Moving to resolutions, you have R 2025-176. This is acknowledging receipt of the Conservation Futures and Open Space Citizens Advisory Board's recommendations for funding for the purchase of Conservation Futures properties and authorizing the executive to negotiate the purchase of those properties. This is also for referral to CDEC, and you'll be setting the final on this one for August 26th as well. And last for scheduling is R 2025-181. This is adopting the preliminary 2026-27 biennial budget priorities of the council and requesting that the executive support these priorities in the biennial budget. This is for referral to rules, and you'll be setting the final on this one for August 5th. Moving to your final action order items on the consent, you have 2 resolutions. First is R 2025-175, and this is confirming the appointment of a new member to the Pierce County Birth to 25 Advisory Board. And the other is R 2025-177. This is confirming the reappointment of 4 existing members to the Pierce County Arts Commission. You have one proclamation under you have 2 proclamations today under section 7. The first of those is the Americans with Disabilities Act Day in Pierce County. That's proclaiming July 26th. And that was requested by council members Ayala, Krueger, Denson, and Yombe. And who will be reading that today?
So I would look to either Councilmember Krueger or Councilmember Yambe, since I'm going to assume that Councilmember Allen is potentially reading the second one. So Councilmember Yambe, do you want to do that one?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And the other proclamation is recognizing Sally Mednensky.
We will get that nailed
I
down
know,
by to this
I know.
afternoon.
For 33 years of dedicated service to Pierce County Juvenile Court. And Councilmember Ayala will be reading that one. Moving to section 8 resolutions, and this is your only other item for consideration. It's R 2025-170. This is authorizing the Planning and Public Works Department to accept funding from the Recreation and Conservation Office for the Pierce County Lead Entity Program. This received a due pass recommendation at rules on July 15th. And those are your agenda items for this afternoon's meeting.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the agenda for this afternoon? Not seeing any. There are no amendments presented and no grants. Okay, so we will go to committee agendas, which is, we're
Just
done.
The meeting today, the
Yeah.
council meeting, that's it, yeah.
So
Mhm.
we just reviewed it, so we're good. We'll move on.
Good.
There's no amendments because there was no committee meeting, so we will go to external boards and commissions. Ms. Hunt.
Hello, Erica Rhett Hunt, council staff. So this week at Puget Sound Regional Council, we've got the executive board meeting on Thursday at 10 a.m. On their consent agenda, I know we've been tracking this, is the approval of the Pierce County Comprehensive Plan. Also on that consent agenda is approval of the Auburn and Gig Harbor community or comprehensive plans. So discussion briefing topics at the executive board include preparations for the 2026 World Cup, state policy and transportation, a Port of Seattle presentation, and Puget Sound data trends. So that executive board meeting will sort of wrap up PSRC business for the summer. They don't have boards and committees during the month of August. So they'll take a break and I won't be back here to talk to you until around Labor Day.
Okay. Sounds, question on that. Do we typically have staff there to answer questions or if it comes up?
At the
At-
executive board?
Yeah.
So typically PSRC staff would answer any questions about the approval of those plans.
Okay.
And those, as we've been tracking, those have gone through different boards and committees to get approval to go to this point to end up on the consent agenda.
Okay. Sounds good. So at this point, we're not anticipating questions is what I'm gleaning from. Okay. Sounds good. Are there any questions for Ms. Rhett Hunt? Thank you. I will look to my colleagues if there are any other boards and commissions. Councilmember Ayala.
Thank you, Chair. Last week, Pierce County Regional Council did meet. There were two presentations. One is the Pierce Transit updates and the 2045, Vision 2045, which we will be hearing later, as well as the Zoo Track Authority report, which we have also, which we've heard of, I think a few weeks ago. Really a short meeting, but very informative.
Thank you. Any other boards or commissions? Okay, I don't have any this month or this week either, so we will go to Mr. Taylor for admin items.
Thank you. Just a few items to report on today. First, in regard to the policy director advertisement that closed yesterday, we've received 16 applications. They're currently under review. Just a reminder that committee reduction concludes this week, so council returns to its regular committee schedules starting next week. 1501 market. So I distributed information on furniture to all council members last week. I appreciate the feedback that I've received from members so far. Based on the feedback, I'm exploring additional furniture options for members with facilities management. Going to be setting up one-on-one meetings with each member and the facilities team and potentially the furniture vendor in the coming week to help better define furniture needs and options for each office. So look forward to a meeting request here soon in that regard. And then the last thing I want to note is that starting next week, we'll have a new extra hire in the office. Ms. Garofalo will be on board to support Council District 2 for a period of planned staff absence. We expect Ms. Garofalo to be on board for about 4 months. And Councilmember Herrera, do you have anything you wish to add since it's in support of your district?
Good.
No? Okay. That's what I have for administrative updates for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for my colleagues for Mr. Taylor? Okay. So chair's topics, budget check-in. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Boki. He did put out at each of your spots the priorities resolution. And one of the reasons we're going to kind of go over it in detail is the plan is to send this to rules and then final. And we are attempting to get this finalized prior to the budget amendment process, because this is for the 26-27 budget. And we think it gets messy if we do them at the same meeting. So we're trying to do one before the other, and then we are also trying not to do budget business at an in-district meeting. So we were kind of, and we need to get this to the executive sooner if we actually want it to like be impactful and for his team to have enough time to see what our priorities are and absorb them. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Boki and we'll run through them. Mr. Boki.
Thank you, Chair Hitchin, Paul Boki, council staff. Yes, the priorities resolution, which will now be R 2025-181, will be introduced today on the consent agenda. As you saw earlier, that's July 22nd. The hearing will be at the Rules Committee on Monday, July 28th. And final is scheduled for August 5th. That coincides, so the scheduling on the budget is intended to be a committee of the whole on July 30th. I believe that's in the morning, and then final on August 12th. So so a number of budget things getting taken care of. The structure in Exhibit A really follows the council priorities. So it starts off with general principles. And those were things that, and this was gleaned from conversations with members and also in the discussions that you had in the committees of the whole that we had surrounding this topic. And so it talks about that the highest priority of the council is to maintain the core functions of county government at a level that sustains the efficient and effective delivery of county services and meets all legal and regulatory requirements. It's also protect the long-term health of the general fund to the extent available. Backfilling grants should be achieved by using fund balances and funds outside of the general fund. There's a recognition that high inflation has led to higher operating costs and that we need to take a look at fees. And it's if it is necessary to use the fund balance in the general fund, those funds should only be used to support non-recurring expenses. It then follows your priorities that you've set out for 26, 27 in your priorities document. There are 7 priorities. We did leave out physical and behavioral health because you've already set that kind of in motion. So you're continuing with the already established prioritized goals in that area. There's also the issue there that you are just outside of well, actually at the end of the next biennium, there is a sunset date on that behavioral health and therapeutic courts fund sales tax. So the areas that you've got there, and then we've split up these areas, each area into priority areas of primary investments, and also if there are funds available, potential investments. And in those areas in housing, public safety, education and workforce, economic growth and infrastructure, environment and climate, and community building. So as you take a look at those, I hope that we've captured those. Staff hopes that we've captured your general thoughts on those subjects, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Boki. And again, we'll have time, and if there's concerns and like any piece of legislation amendments and all of that. So, but looking for feedback or questions. I see people reading, which is why I'm waiting.
Yeah, I'm available for discussion, and staff is also, and we can bring in the appropriate staff on each of those items.
And some of you may remember we were trying to figure out how to capture this is a priority versus this is a, hey, if we can do it, here's where we would suggest you fund. And so you'll see some, for instance, under the very first one of housing, there's primary investments and then potential investments. And then there's others where we only give potential investments because we didn't really identify something that we're like, hey, this is like, you gotta do this. And so that's kind of why there's a little bit of a different emphasis in some of them, because there were things that as a group, many of you said, like, this is we expect to see this, or we really think the executive needs to find a way to fund this or do this. And then these are things, again, those potential are, we really think these are good ideas, or we like this. If you can make it happen, this is better for our community, but we understand, right? There's, again, I'm still looking for my money tree, everybody. So, so happy to have conversations, during study sessions, and then also during rules next week. And you all know how to get a hold of Mr. Boki and our staff. Councilmember Krueger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just say my frustration is we have all of these great services, but we're not getting presentations on how can we bump up more revenue to generate that, to pay for these services. And, you know, looking at, you know, finding people or, you know, making more fees to do anything doesn't really create wealth. It deteriorates wealth. And I'm looking for opportunities to beef up the industries that generate the taxes instead of more regulations. How can we make it easier to make money? So they generate that revenue. So it's just more of a rhetorical question, rhetorical thought, but
So you're looking at the economic development side of it?
and how can that be incorporated in all of these other arenas as well, kind of a thing, or, you know, more emphasis on the economic development, which requires the infrastructure to attract the businesses versus 6 of the 7 or 5 of the 6, which was it, 7, are things that are part of government services, but they drain the finances.
Okay. Other thoughts or questions? Well, Councilmember Krueger, I know we have a priority around economic development, but childcare is one of the functions, but if there's other things, like other things that you're interested in, or I know when we developed the budget, we got pretty good at provisos last time we did this. So if there's something that we need to look at, but I know the chair of economic development and infrastructure continues to really pull in panels to talk about that. So I know we've been doing a lot of learning. I don't know how to capture this in this, but I think, I mean, it makes sense.
It's just kind of like a brainstorming kind of a thing on it. And childcare is, it doesn't generate revenue. It's an expense, and it's something that gets subsidized. And a lot of that deterioration of that infrastructure, of that network was due to regulations that I've seen the state put on to the businesses for a few decades. So.
Thank you for the comments. Any other questions for Mr. Boki? Okay. Well, we will move on to, thank you, Mr. Boki. We'll move on to other business B, which is communications. Mr. Dominique.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the council, Brian Dominique, council staff. In your packets today, there are 2 proclamations for review. We have Pierce County Fair Weekend, and we have Overdose Awareness Month. Those are both in your packet for review. I will note Pierce County Fair Weekend is one the council has historically done every year in recognition of the fair that runs the first weekend in August. And Overdose Awareness Month is Overdose Awareness Day, and it's celebrated on August 31st. But we're moving it to August 5th to be able to capture all the things that are happening in August for overdose awareness, to include the opioid summit that the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department does every year.
Thank you for the
And then
Presentation, you have one more?
I don't have any more proclamations, but I do have some communications updates, but I can pause for the
Let's
proclamations.
pause because Councilmember Krueger has a question or comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the fair, I may be looking for an update on that because they have the Fair Market and then the Fair Foundation that I think would be good to mention in there. So I'll work on revamping this draft a little bit to include those. So
Absolutely.
just as an FYI.
Okay. I think we approved it this morning or in rules, the fair. Was that in rules this morning?
No, ma'am.
Okay, never mind. It's all blur. So, yep, keep working on that and we'll go from there. That's next week's rules.
And then for communications updates, I come up here and say a lot of words sometimes, so I wanted to provide context into what some of that means. So we have a series of owned communication tools that we rely on to communicate with the public. In addition to the work we do with the media. One of those is the county legislator. We aim to publish 26 newsletters a year. So every other week we publish a newsletter. We've consistently been doing that for about 18 months. I don't think we've missed a newsletter outside of like it being a holiday or something. We have a blog and we publish 12 blog posts a month. At least there are 12 blog posts a year, once a month. 12 blog posts would be a lot. And then we have a podcast, which I've mentioned. We're at 6 podcasts a year right now. We want to move that in to be aligned with our blog to be once a month. So our idea is we generally have something going out that's like a feature, something every week that informs the community on what's going on. We generally receive positive feedback on this. It is a big portion of our communications plan, the owned media realm. Most of our work centers on communicating with the public. So this is one tool we use. So I just wanted to make sure the council kind of understood of what some of those tools are and how we use them. So pending any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any questions on or for our communications team? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you, Mr. Dominique. Is there any other business before us in study session?
No further business, Madam Chair. No further business, Madam Chair.
My colleagues? Seeing none, we are adjourned. We'll be back here in 2 hours, everybody, for our regular council meeting. We are adjourned.